Hey, I'm Mark.
And I'm Theresa. Come hang out with us today.
On my Fix It Up life. It's time to bring beauty back in your next project by seeing red. Born to beat the elements, Western Red Cedar is awesome for outdoor rooms, decks, fences, pergolas, and more. Inside, cedar's a sweet choice for hope chests, highlight walls, and woodworking projects, big and small. Stable, chemical-free, and safe, cedar's a natural choice. So bring beauty back to the yard and punch up projects inside the house. For more information and ideas, see red at wrcla.org.
I hear the drums, I hear the music. I just heard about Western Red Cedar and backyard. I think that we should have a party now.
Barbecue cookout outside with some icy cold sodas. What's up?
Sodas? What's
Yeah,
soda's best friend in the cooler?
What's that?
What's soda's best friend in the cooler?
I have no idea.
Because I feel like I'm telling one of our 5-year-olds jokes. Jack has just started learning jokes, and they don't always exactly make sense.
No, not exactly.
So I think my question, what's soda's best friend in the cooler, is kind of something that Jack would ask me. I think I've been hanging out with him too long.
Is there an answer anywhere in our future?
Beer! Beer is soda's best friend in the cooler at a party.
Why, of course.
They mingle together.
It is.
Yeah.
And we are joined by none other than the first ever beer royalty on the My Fix It Up Life show, the Beeroness.
The Beeroness, who I think might be frozen for a second.
Have some slight tech difficulties.
We do have some tech difficulties.
Is she back?
I think she is here, the Beeroness. Yay!
Yes, you're here.
How
you
are
can
you,
hear
Jackie?
us. The Beeroness Jackie Dodd to answer this gripping question torn from today's headlines.
What's the question?
What beer should I drink with this candy?
Yes! Okay, so, Jackie, I have to ask you. I think we follow you on Twitter.
At the Beeroness.
And I think I saw you tweet out something about candy and beer. Yep. I was fascinated. And to me, fall is sort of kicks off the candy season. So we're starting to get ready for the candy season because we're talking about, like, at our house, we're talking about what do you want to be for Halloween. Then Halloween happens, and then you just kick it into candy season until you hit Easter, and that's it. So we need to know, as grown-ups, what beer we should be eating with that holiday candy.
I am seeing that you are not hearing us.
No.
Okay, am I back?
You're back.
You're back.
You're back.
I'm kind of hearing you. I'm getting a little frozen. I'm back. Okay. So candy and beer, first of all, there are no losers in this battle. But there are things to kind of consider when you're pairing the two. I mean, at the end of the day, you're not losing because you're getting candy and beer, so everybody wins. But for me, the things to consider are hops and malt. And that is, a hoppy beer is like an IPA. So you get that sort of high bitter type flavor, and bitter is good. And then the other end of the spectrum is malt, which is a sweet. So like it's more like your stouts, your kind of sweeter, your Belgian ales. So those are the two kind of spectrums that we're working with here. So if you really like your hoppy beers, like do you like for instance, what's your favorite beer? What's a beer that you like?
The kind that comes in a bottle or a can.
What's the last beer you drank?
Okay, or the kind that's poured.
Yeah, or that have, yeah.
The kind that's liquid.
I like Smittix.
Yeah.
And what else do I like?
You like the king of beers.
I like the king of beers sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I like Yingling. I like Guinness. I like... You're cringing at all my beer things.
I'll drink a Guinness from time to time. I'll say that.
See, I'm not...
She's beer royalty.
She's beer royalty, so...
So she can look down upon you.
The only kind of beer that she drinks either had, like, Rogue Dead Guy. They only make, like, 5 of them, and 4 of them go to her house.
No, there's tons of Rogue Dead Guy out there. There's a lot of Rogue beers that are really super limited release that they never bottle. But so what you're talking about, I think you like pale lagers. from what I hear, and then you like sort of mild stouts.
Yes.
So if you're this guy, I would sort of push you a little bit closer to the craft beer spectrum, but nothing too crazy and intense. Nothing with a super intense flavor profile. So for you, I think next time you go to a bar and there's a big craft beer menu, try maybe a wheat beer that you haven't had, like a white ale.
Okay,
So
like a
if you have
Belgian.
a white ale, like Allagash White is a really good, what I call a gateway beer. It's something that, you know, people that like beer but maybe aren't super into craft beer, they kind of don't know what they like, but they know that they're not super excited about I.P.A.s. There's a lot of people like this. If you don't like I.P.A.s, it doesn't mean you don't like craft beer. It's just that it's not your flavor profile.
Right.
So if you get an Allagash White, or say there's an orange wheat beer that Hangar 24 out of Redland, California makes called Orange Wheat. Super easy to remember.
How do you know which one? How do you know what that tastes like?
I have no idea.
That could be way
it's
too
ambiguous.
That could be way too malty. You have no idea. You just. I need truth in labeling.
It's not crazy intense on either end of the spectrum. It's a super mild, super drinkable beer. So white ales generally are. They're made to sort of drink them all day. It's not super intense.
So what is the blast off flavor profile? That's the other end of the spectrum that I know you love. Your taste buds will just go like, oh, I'm drinking this.
I haven't met a lot of beers that I don't like. There are some beers that I'm like, you know what, I'm done with that beer, but it was good. And there are some beers that I could drink lots of, but I don't really have if I only can drink one beer for the rest of my life, it's going to be like a stout or a porter. I'm like an old man when it comes to beer. I want like a dark beer. I like dark. So if we're doing dark beers, you know, chocolate's a really easy pairing with the stout. Even if, you know, if you want Guinness, if you like it, and Guinness is great. I've actually stayed at when I was younger and traveling, when I was right out of college, I went to Ireland during St. Patrick's Day festivals, and I stayed at the Guinness Brewery hostel. It's this hostel right at the base of the Guinness Brewery. So I had Guinness there, and it's great. And so now I sort of have this love for Guinness. And I would pair that with a milk chocolate peanut cluster, because it's not Guinness, from what people don't, if they've never had a Guinness, it's not a super intense beer. It's pretty mild. And so you want something that's also sort of mild, but kind of can bring out the, you know, the roasty flavors of a milder. And if you like Guinness, next time you're at a bar, try a milk stout, because it's the same sort of it's not, there are some super intense, super bitter, super highly flavored stouts and porters, and then there's kind of a milder end of the spectrum when it comes to stouts and porters. So if you like kind of a milder, easy drinking stout, pick a milk stout or an oatmeal stout.
I like it. I like it.
I
like the stand up and get my attention review too.
Well, I want to go back to candy.
Well, yeah, of course.
Now, we talked about chocolate, but what about like the clear candies, like lollipops and stuff like that? If I want to suck on a lollipop, what beer should I have in my other hand?
It depends on what lollipop you have. Let's say you're a gummy worm kind of girl.
Okay.
Like you like the sour kind of gummy worm flavors. You need kind of a big, intense beer to kind of compete with that, because if you had your king of beers, it's just going to kind of get lost, and all you're going to be left with is the sour. So you're going to have to try a bit more of an intense beer. And so I would, if you're going to have like a handful of gummy worms, I would try an IPA, and you don't have to go with an intense IPA. I would try Bear Republic out of Northern California has this beer called Racer 5. That's a great IPA because it's not too much. It's got some malt in there, which is kind of the sweetness part of a beer. But it's big enough to stand up to gummy worms, but it's not going to be overwhelming.
Well,
so I have a question about a beer, though. One of the beers that I have really enjoyed is the Golden Monkey.
Oh, the Golden Monkey.
Yes.
Yes.
What in the heck kind of candy would you have with a Golden Monkey?
A golden, I don't know if I've had a gold. That's an East Coast.
Yes, it is.
Distribution.
Yes.
And this is the thing with beer is that, there's a lot of beers that are kind of like, there's limited distribution. And so you East Coast people have your set of craft beer, and us West Coast people have our set of craft beer. And there's some that cross the lines really easily, but there's some that are super well known. Like there's two that go head to head. That East Coast, it's this beer called Heady Topper, which is an IPA on the East Coast, and that's like supposed to be the best IPA on all the East Coast, but us West Coasters can't get it. But on the West Coast, we have this beer called Pliny the Elder, and then you East Coasters can't get it. So it is like there is sort of this beer map in everyone's head of like, oh, well, if it's pumpkin beer, I'm not in Schlafly pumpkin beer territory, but we have pumpkin beers over here that you guys can't get over there. So this is sort of this
Pliny the Elder. Somebody get the History Channel on our next hangout.
Fascinating. Okay, so pumpkin beer. What would you have with a pumpkin beer?
It depends on the pumpkin beer, because this is the thing. I'm not super excited about most pumpkin beers because I don't want to be like smashed in the face with pumpkin. I want to have to kind of work for it a little bit. I want the pumpkin to be a little bit mild. I don't want to be like molested by pumpkin when I'm drinking. So if you have,
I'm sorry, my husband, he is actually absorbing that so that he can then use it later on his friends.
My God!
And claim as if he created that statement himself.
In the minute or so that we have left, now that this interview with the Beeroness at the Beeroness
got you
has
into
turned
hysterics
to gold.
We only have about a minute left.
We have about a minute left. And we've talked about beer, we've talked about candy, but what we haven't talked about is the Beeroness.com, the theme of which is you can have your beer and eat it too. And you talk about beer pairings with different things, but you have a website that's so good that I actually don't read it because it will torpedo my whole day. Your stories section, like when you were a lifeguard, hilarious. Hilarious.
When I almost died in Morocco, not so hilarious. When I was asked to do porn, I said no, by the way. I said no, but I was asked on the street in LA.
Thanks for clearing that
up.
That's
really nice.
I said no.
It's always good to be asked, right?
It was flattering. I was like, but by the way, oh, hell no.
As it turns out, no.
Career opportunity.
Part stories from my crazy life and cooking with beer. The entire thing is recipes made with beer. So
you have
to
check out Jackie Dodd at the Beeroness. Follow her on Twitter,
Buy
on
her
Facebook. Buy her book. She also has a forthcoming book.
Yes.
We'll keep you up to date on that at My Fix It Up Life. Don't forget to watch this interview on YouTube. Woo!